Welcome, everybody, to another edition of The Truth About Fantasy Football, the Grueling Truths Radio Network's weekly fantasy football show brought to you by Gridiron Mo. Gridiron Mo is a new interactive football app that lets you call what you think an offense or defense will do in a live NFL game and compete against others around the country. Check it out at gridironmo.com or thegruelingtruth.net. I'm your host for the Fantasy Football Show, Matt Andruscavage, and we've got three co-hosts here today. LaDonna Williams, who was a guest with us last week or the week before, and I think it was the week before, and then Aaron Zepnick and Oz Davis. How's everyone doing tonight?
Fantastic.
I'm good.
Good. Did everybody have successful weeks? I went 2-0. I was happy.
I was 2-1, and I was actually on the verge of 3-0, and a guy that I have to say is a stud that beat me is Jordan Howard against the Vikings. I was feeling pretty good going into Monday night with a 27-point lead, and I'm thinking I got it in the bag, and Jordan Howard took it out of the bag and shoved it down my throat.
Yeah, that was a surprise. I think we had him as a sit. I think most websites I checked, everywhere that I saw, Jordan Howard was a lock to be a sit, and he surprised the nation, I think.
Yeah, and that pretty much sealed my fate in that fantasy league. So I'm 2 games out now with 6 to go, and it'll take a miracle to catch all the teams in front of me.
Oz, you climbing out of the basement yet, or are you still setting up shop down there?
Well, my Yahoo League, I've done really well. After starting 1-3, I'm up to 4-4, so I'm on a hot streak.
Go.
And in daily fantasy, again, made money this week. I'm not making a buttload of money, but I am turning a profit every week with usually about 2 lineups. And my successes in everything this week can be summed up with one monosyllable, and that is Coop. Amari Cooper. What a stud.
Yeah, he had a big day.
He won me money. I love Amari Cooper. He's great. Happy he's a part of my team. As for the Grueling Truth Football League and my team, the less said, the better. I'd really like to pin it all on the Cleveland Browns defense and that awesome prediction I made last week.
Yeah, it cost me the Pick'em show. Thanks.
But
if they win, if that prediction would have come true, I'd have been in first place again.
Of course.
I lost it by one game, and that was it.
You lost it by 1 fourth-quarter score.
Yeah, seemed like a reasonable pick, but...
And that wasn't even what killed me. What killed me was another helpful bunch that won me in daily fantasy was the Carolina Panthers defense.
Yeah, I had them.
They scored something like, in the flea flicker format, they scored something like 27 points. Now, that difference of 23 points was enough to beat me in Grueling Truth. So, hats off to Carolina defense. And I do want to say this. In a couple of my leagues, like I said, in my daily fantasy leagues, I did pick up Carolina because we did the show too early. And upon reflection, yeah, I definitely would have taken Carolina. And in fact, I did against an Arizona team, which throws a lot of turnovers. So be aware of this facing Arizona for the rest of the season. They turn the ball over a lot.
Great. LaDonna, how about you? Did you have a good week?
I went 2-2.
There you go.
And one of those leagues.
You got 4 leagues.
Yeah.
You got to win at least 2, right?
Yeah. I had Amari Cooper on 1.
Doesn't everybody if you're in 4 leagues?
No, you would think. That would be great if that was, possible. What hurt me in my Yahoo League was actually that guy, Kirk Cousins, and how that league is set up. He ended up with 60 points against me. I had Matt Ryan, but Matt Ryan ended up with 40. But what really hurt me, Julio decided to just be a dud. And
60 points. Are you playing fantasy basketball with these guys?
No, that's how he has it set up. It's 10. It's 0.1. It's because when I benched, what was the week that Julio had 300, and that was the week Matt Ryan had 5 touchdowns?
Yeah.
It was like he had like 70-something points on my bench. The only good thing, yeah,
Ooh.
the only good thing is I had Ben Roethlisberger, and that was the week that he threw 4. He didn't have as many yards, but he had close to that many yards. He had like 3 or 4 touchdowns, and he got, like 60-something points, and I won because of him. Yeah.
Man, that's a bummer. It's always painful to see guys on the bench that score big.
Mhm.
Even Blake Bortles?
Well, he had a big day, so depending on who else you had. And I
who
had
had Derek Carr on the bench?
Dak Prescott scored me almost as many points, believe it or not, in the flea flicker mode, which was good because Dak Prescott played a heck of a game. And I'm not just saying it because I started him, so I'm glad for anybody who started him. I saw on Yahoo that he was only started like 22% last week. But, he had a great game on the field, and I was glad he was rewarded with fantasy points. It was great to see that. Dak Prescott is awesome. And I don't see why he's not owned by everybody and started every week at this point. His fantasy numbers, for example, in PPR leagues are increasing week to week steadily. And this week he gets Cleveland. He should be started in all leagues this week.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
If you have Cowboys players, they should be started.
Yeah, no question. I'm sure we're going to get – why don't we get into our studs and duds for the week? And I'm sure we're going to have a lot to say about starts and sits as well because that is definitely a matchup that we'll be talking about. So, Aaron, why don't you go ahead and kick it off with studs and duds for the week?
We talked pretty much about a few of mine. Blake Bortles was a stud this week. I benched him in favor of Carson Wentz. Not a good move. Carson Wentz had 14. So Carson was a dud for me this week. I just didn't have a lot of faith in Jacksonville's offense. The way we talked, we talked about Tennessee and their defense and how they've been playing pretty well. Stud quarterbacks, Kirk Cousins, LaDonna touched on him. He had a good week. Derek Carr, 513 yards. I mean, I didn't see that coming.
That's crazy good.
Yeah, so a lot of guys had some good weeks. Rodgers had a pretty decent week, threw multiple touchdown passes against Atlanta. Matt Ryan also a decent week, nothing too spectacular, but
hey, Tom Brady had a pretty good week, huh?
Yeah, Brady had a good week.
Had a big week.
I have Brady, Gronk, and Edelman in one league, and they're on a bye this week. So,
but how about this week? How about this week to illustrate how difficult the Patriots are to play week to week? I mean, how many different people caught passes? 4, and plus Blunt also had a touchdown. Am I correct in saying that? So he's like spreading these points around, and then still a guy like Bennett, is out there, and you're starting him, and he doesn't get a touchdown, and you're disappointed. Here it is. Perfect game that illustrates the difficulty of starting these guys in fantasy football, except Brady himself. We
touched on this week 4 when Brady was going to come back. We talked about, will Gronk pick up now, or will Bennett pick up, and, they'll use Gronk as kind of a decoy, and Bennett will play the Aaron Hernandez role minus killing people.
Let's hope.
We talked about this, and I said back then, the continuity that Gronk already has with Brady, if Gronk can stay healthy, he's his number one target. And he's, besides Edelman, with the small little short dump-off passes, he's such a good route runner in the intermediate routes. But for dud quarterback, how about Sam Bradford? If anyone started him expecting a big night against Chicago, I think that was a disappointment.
My hand's up.
But
I didn't expect a big night.
Ouch.
Fortunately, he's my second quarterback in a 2-quarterback league. I was either him or Alex Smith, and that ended up being a better move. But it didn't matter either way because I was far enough ahead that it didn't matter.
Oh, listen to this. Humble brag.
Just saying.
Marcus Mariota, I think, was another one that we talked about having a big week. I think that was one of Matt's surefire starts.
Which
I wasn't impressed. He didn't have a huge night against Jacksonville.
Mariota?
Yeah.
He was solid. He threw a couple of touchdowns. It wasn't a 35-pointer, I don't think, but
yeah, he was solid, but Bortles would have been a better play.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that?
Yeah.
Bortles, I would have.
He had Byron Leftwich's throwing motion.
I actually had him in my top. He was number 6 on my fantasy blog. Derek Carr was.
Bortles?
Yeah. No, Derek Carr.
Oh yeah, Carr.
Bortles, no. I didn't think that. No.
No, Mariota's been real solid, and I continue to play him.
Yeah.
Here's some reverse psychology though. When you have two quarterbacks that are going up against each other, and you think that Tennessee is going to win, Jacksonville's quarterback Bortles wouldn't be a bad play in hindsight because of the fact that you got to figure if they're going to be down, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot, which they were.
Yep, that's true.
That's exactly the situation I had in one league, right? But
which is the same philosophy I used with Carson Wentz and Dallas. So I just picked the wrong one that was going to be down. Philly never really got it going, and Jacksonville did, late. So sorry to trump over you there. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I actually had that situation too, if you can believe it, because last week I had that situation on the waiver wire because I knew I didn't want to start Blake Bortles anymore. So I had to choose between Wentz and Dak, and I went with Dak, figuring that the Cowboys would probably turn the ball over less than the Eagles. Based purely on that, I went with Prescott, and it paid off. In my other league, I had that. I had the Tennessee-Jacksonville dilemma at quarterback, and I'm just so disgusted with Bortles at this point after being so high on him. I must be hungover now. It must be the day after for me with Blake Bortles. And I sat him down, and I neglected to factor in the fact that Blake Bortles is a fantasy all-star in garbage time. He's awesome in garbage time. He's awesome. He's a Hall of Famer garbage time fantasy player. Unfortunately, doesn't translate into wins for his real team.
I got some running backs and receivers and to get through real quick here. Running back studs. How about Gillislee from Buffalo filling in for LaShawn McCoy? Had a pretty nice day.
He won me my fantasy.
Again, Jordan Howard had a big day, which crushed my team this week. Theo Riddick came back in a big way, had 31 in a PPR setting for me. Last minute pickup. I picked him back up because he's been out. I had to pick up. I picked up Ty Montgomery, and he couldn't play. So anyway, Theo Riddick was a stud. Devontae Freeman had 2 touchdowns, had another good week. Melvin Gordon. Some of these guys that are continuing to be studs. There was somebody else I wanted to talk about, and I forget who it was now.
Was it Duke?
Booker?
Booker or Duke? Duke from the Browns? He had a great game.
So, Derrick Henry from the Tennessee Titans. If you do not have him and he's available on the trading block, or if you can pick him up in some leagues, he might be open, pick him up. I picked him up today. I'm hoping I get him. I put in for him. DeMarco Murray's banged up and questionable this week, and I tell you what, I think Derrick Henry's actually going to be better for that offense, believe it or not.
He did it. Oh, that's right, because he had the MRI on the toe. But most likely, if he gets listed as questionable tomorrow, he'll be Veterans Day off. But I think he plays and gets most of the touches still, unless he further injures himself.
And that could be, but just in case,
but Derrick Henry's good.
If you have a running back situation where you're not feeling very confident, you got a Matt Jones who's been out, or maybe you're a guy that had Foster and you're still kind of searching for that RB2, Derrick Henry's not a bad play. Bilal Powell's another one that's starting to get more touches here, and Forte is not that young. And if you're in a PPR and Bilal Powell, I have to toot my own horn here. He had 13, doubled his season high. Called it last week, Oz.
Yeah.
And
the 35-yard touchdown. That was it.
Yeah, but
I think he only had like 10 touches, but at least he had a good run.
13 points, which is out of an RB2 or a flex in a non-PPR setting is not bad.
I was really happy. I was forced to start him, so I was really glad he scored finally, because I've been hoping for this all year.
Absolutely. some wide receivers that were studs this week. I had a really, really interesting dilemma. I had Randall Cobb, I had Ty Montgomery, both that were out, and I also had some guys on bye, Jarvis Landry and so forth, and I went out at the last minute, and I got Mohamed Sanu, like literally at 11:30, so or a half hour before kickoff. So I'm like, who's the best guy that I could start? Well, Sanu was out there, so I picked him up in 2 leagues, and actually one of the leagues I ended up winning because of that. In the other league, I won by like 50 points, so it didn't really matter. I did have a situation where I had Ty Montgomery, and I kept him in my starting lineup because of the fact that I'm 6-1 in that league, now 7-1. That's the Grueling Truth League, by the way, Oz, not to rub it in. But
Aaron is all about the rub-in today.
Instead of dropping one of my guys that I don't want to drop, I'm like, I'll just take the 0 and chance that I beat this guy anyway because I like my lineup better than I like his. You know what I mean? So another advice to fantasy owners out there, you don't always have to go and drop a startable guy that you would never want to drop because the game times, your roster's lock. I'd rather take the 0 and take the loss if your record allows it than to go out and drop somebody you're going to regret, and then maybe you have to play him the next week if that guy on waivers gets him. You know what I mean? So if you're sitting there with a guy you just don't want to drop, like I didn't want to drop Montgomery because when he comes back, he's going to be used in the same role.
Yeah, I would never, ever want to take a 0, but I know what you're saying. Don't drop a good player, for the sake of 5 points, but as a fantasy owner, you have to be better than you can't take a 0. That's like the only analogy I can think of, Aaron, is like that's like having 2 running backs on your roster and they both get hurt. You have to plan better. You have to have some kind of a person that you can drop to not take a 0. You never take a 0. But I also wouldn't drop a good player for the sake of 5 points. There's got to be a third option.
Well, I took a 0, and it worked out, and I still have, every guy that I wanted to keep. The problem was, and my fault for not planning ahead, but we have 3 receivers, a flex, and 2 running backs. Montgomery is a guy that's valuable at running back or receiver now, so I don't want to drop a guy that's flexible like that. And then I can play around with my flex, running back, and receivers based on that. I had Stephon Diggs and Jordan Matthews going up against, the Bears and the Cowboys. And Jordan Matthews is their number 1 option in Philly. He's not a great receiver, but he's definitely not droppable, in my opinion. And I had to start the guys that I had in there, so I couldn't drop them. And all the guys that I had on my bench were, guys that I'm not dropping. Jarvis Landry.
You sound like you have a unique situation. I don't think there's going to be too many teams that are, I don't know exactly what the format is for this team, but if you've got that many good players to start and to drop, maybe you can't afford to take a 0. I don't think that's the norm, but I know what you're saying.
And I did just pick up Des Bryant on the waiver wire, how he got dropped.
No waiver wire. Okay, now I get a better idea of what's going on in this league.
Yeah.
All right.
So, and I'm the number 10 waiver priority. How he got through to me last week, I have no idea.
Sounds like you're not playing with some very good players.
I don't know if guys just aren't paying attention.
I need to go to that league.
Yeah. This is the league I need to join for money.
Right.
I don't play for money, but I would play for money in this league.
Add me next year.
You can get Des Bryant off of waivers, and you can afford to take 0s.
Yep. I'm going to that league.
Right. Well, let's get on to
the league that Oz is 2-6 in.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm one of the. He was probably playing me when he took the 0. I've just been brutal in that league. Well, it's like, look, I've been playing fantasy for a long time, and one thing that I've always been extremely lucky at is avoiding injury guys, but I've just been destroyed.
Not this year.
And I picked late. I made a couple of bad picks. I made a couple of jumpy picks, and yeah, it was enough. It was enough. I can still look back on draft day and go, dope, for drafting a couple of guys too high that blew it for me. Sammy Watkins injury, I mean, that was a huge hit. A couple other guys got injured. That was it. I was just out of that league. I don't know who Aaron was playing last week, and the only reason why I did not pick up Bryant on waivers is because I had no idea he was on waivers. I assumed somebody had him. I guess I shouldn't make that assumption. I guess I won't in this league anymore. I thought everybody was smarter, but I guess not.
You're the commissioner, Oz. You can see all the waiver wire drops and pickups.
Oh, yeah. And what? This is my full-time job? I mean, come on. I played it just because I'm
It's not my full-time job either, but I pay attention.
Yeah. Well, you do a lot more than me, apparently.
Well, it doesn't sound like you're the only one, Oz. It's not like everybody else. It doesn't sound like too many people are paying attention.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you guys do it, okay, but I just don't spend that much time on it. I look at it maybe 5 minutes, maybe 3 times a week, each of my lineups. I can't afford to get too sucked in. I got to make these judgment calls, and I make them quick. Again, the Bryant thing, that's the thing. It just never occurred to me that he might actually be out there. You guys are nuts. Everybody except Aaron.
Well, let's move on to the next to the next part. We're starting to run a little low on time. I know we got a lot of stuff to cover still. We got some starts. We already talked about Cleveland. You start all your Dallas Cowboys this week. If you were lucky enough to get a guy like Des Bryant on the waiver wire, you could probably get Cole Beasley. You could probably get Ezekiel Elliott on the waiver wire. Start them all. If you have any Cowboys this week, this is the week to start them. Marcus Mariota and pretty much all the big Titans against the Chargers. The Chargers defense is not very good. Mariota, Derrick Henry, Delaney Walker, even Sharp. They got a lot of good players over there. They spread the ball around well. They score a lot of points, and most of the players are good for somewhere between 12 and 25 points a week.
Right. And
all the Saints.
They're only going to score more through the season. This team, everybody jokes about the South and whatever, but Tennessee is going to come out.
South is not bad.
Tennessee is going to come out with about 10 wins.
Tennessee is a real threat to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
No question about it. Mariota is playing better and better.
Yep. I'd also add in Rashard Matthews. This guy's been coming along.
He's been playing well too.
A lot lately. He's a decent wide receiver 3 option. He's got touchdowns in 3 of his last 4 games. He's getting a steady 4 targets a week, so he can.
I think DeMarco Murray is the steadiest, most consistent fantasy back in the NFL. He gets me almost 30 points a week. He's fantastic.
What?
But the Saints against you don't get 30 points with Delaney Walker in your league, or DeMarco Murray in your league.
Like
I've been getting that faithfully. I've been getting that faithfully from Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, Ezekiel Elliott too. He's another one. Those are probably the two.
Okay, I almost had a heart attack over here. Continue.
The Saints are at my 49ers. I think this is not a bad week to play Drew Brees. Mark Ingram was a dud last week. He ended with negative yardage, or 3 carries, 5 yards, and a fumble, and then he promptly got benched. But he got me minus 0.75 points last week. I think he's going to rebound this week against a very struggling 49ers run defense. Brandon Cooks and Willie Snead will probably do well. Not a bad week to play the Saints. Terrence West against Pittsburgh. Baltimore's at home. Terrence West has been playing well. I'd play him against Pittsburgh's suspect run defense. Devontae Adams from the Packers against the Colts, I think, is a solid play. He's been getting a lot of targets. I'd be looking at that. The Chargers against the Titans. I think Phillip Rivers and Tyrell Williams, Cam Inman's a possible play, especially for like a dynasty league. And Travis Benjamin's got, I think he's got a little bit of a knee issue. So I'd be looking at like Tyrell Williams, but Phillip Rivers is a good play this week. Kyle Rudolph against the Lions is a good play. And but I would lower your expectations, but don't be totally frightened of playing Frank Gore and Andrew Luck against the Packers. I wouldn't expect them to do a lot, but I also don't think that they're – I think Gore is good for 10 to 12 points. Andrew Luck could be playing from behind, and he can run. He's got a bad offensive line, but I think he could be good for – depending on what you need this week it's the bye-apocalypse, so everybody's scrambling around trying to find players. If you got Andrew Luck and another quarterback on a bye week, I think he can get you 18 to 20 points this week. Probably not going to go off for 30 to 40. But,
if he doesn't get knocked out with the season ending.
As long as he doesn't get knocked out, because that line is pretty putrid.
Yeah. I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting for that domino to fall. I'm glad I didn't get Andrew Luck this season because
the Colts
just waiting for it.
The Colts just don't look any different than they did last year.
Nope.
So.
Big disappointment.
So are they going to blame his shoulder again?
For Luck?
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows? He doesn't look terrible when he has time. The problem is the guy just has no time.
No.
So those are my starts for the week. We can comment on that a little bit more. I just got a couple of sits. Russell Wilson against the Bills. I'm not sure Russell Wilson is a great play this week. I'd be at least a little leery about him. And then the last one, the Lions passing game. I would just lower your expectations. They spread the ball around a lot, and we received a question about Sterling Shepard this week for the show. Sterling Shepard's, I believe his targets are going down because Eli Manning is spreading the ball around like crazy. In the last game against the Rams, he completed a pass to 10 different receivers. He's just spreading it around, and so that's just going to mean limited targets. As Odell Beckham has improved, I think that's just going to lower the targets for Victor Cruz and Sterling Shepard.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you guys
Victor
got?
Cruz. Is Cruz even getting targets these days?
He caught 5 balls against your Rams.
We talked. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so did I. We talked. I got that many targets at least. We talked about this in the preseason. One of the problems, and Aaron was correct on Beckham in this respect, one of the problems with the Giants is they run so many sets with 3 wide receivers. They have so many weapons coming off of that line in terms of receivers that if this game plan is working, and the game plan right now calls for 70% or more with 3 catching backs, so 3 wide receivers or multiple tight ends. 70% of their plays this year, with 75% last year, are in this formation. He's going to spread it around a lot. So, yeah, I think this is a knock on any Giants wide receiver. If the game plan is working, all those guys are going to get a few catches. If the game plan's not working, well, Odell might whip off a long touchdown, but you have him and you're starting him anyway. So,
no doubt.
It's a tough call. I mean, these Giants. Now, I do like the possibility of maybe Jennings doing something this week, but maybe I'm just being optimistic because I have him in a couple of leagues.
They're playing Philly this week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're being very optimistic.
Not really sure on that one.
Yeah, I am.
Jennings
is totally optimistic.
Because I was going to say he was trying don't start running back this week.
Okay. See, I'm desperate. See, this is how much I suck. I really do suck. I really.
Well, what do you guys think about the Raiders? If that game's in Oakland, I don't know. I still don't know that I like Latavius Murray as a surefire start, just because they've been splitting carries. And against Denver's defense, do you guys like Latavius Murray start this week?
I
No.
I have Latavius. I have to start him, but there's too much splitting going around. Latavius is still getting the most carries out of those 3, but it's just too much. It's just too spread out.
I'm thinking that you pick up a guy like Sharkhandrick West and start him over Latavius Murray.
Yeah, I think that's a good call.
Yep. West is owned in just 10% of Yahoo leagues. I think it's about 20% of Flea Flicker leagues. He's probably available in the Grueling Truth League. I lie.
Everyone's available in the Grueling Truth League.
Apparently, I should look for Brady. Screw Bortles, man. Brady must still be on the waiver wire. So
I don't know. He might be. I have Breeze and Ryan. I don't need Brady.
West is an awesome pickup and play this week, I think.
I think West will be one of the top pickups this week, along with Gillislee, pending on LaShawn McCoy's health, and also Derrick Henry if he's out there in your league.
And then what do you guys think of the Lions-Vikings matchup for the Lions offense?
I think the Lions are going to struggle a little bit to score points against the Vikings. I don't see them having two subpar performances in a row. Their coaching is just too good for that. And it's a division game. I know Chicago was as well, but I think they were at home. They were excited. Cutler was back. They played with a little bit more. Even Jay Cutler had a little more passion and enthusiasm than I'm used to seeing.
I've never seen him like that.
Yeah, I have never seen him like that either. It looked like Aaron Rodgers put on Cutler's uniform that day.
But, yeah, the Lions at Minnesota I'm not really sure about. Maybe Marvin Jones.
I would disagree here. I think the Lions are going to spin the scoreboard in this one. I think Minnesota has been exposed. I think that, statistically speaking, I was going to save this for the Pick'em show. Statistically speaking, Minnesota is only 22nd in quarterback hurries. And if you give Stafford the time, I mean, we talked about how he spread the ball. He'll find a target. He'll find it. If you're going to give him time like that, no problem. I think the Lions are going to put together a lot of points. I think they're going to have a lot of fantasy points in this game.
What's a lot of points this week? A lot of fantasy points, a lot of points on the scoreboard?
Points on the board, I think they're good for at least 4 touchdowns.
Matt, I was going to talk about this on the Pick'em show. I'm actually picking Detroit in this game. With Rhodes going out again for Minnesota, they're banged up on their defense now a little bit. Zendejo's out. Rhodes is out. You lose half of your secondary, the passing game becomes a little bit easier, and Minnesota's pass rush is overrated, in my opinion. I think their linebackers, Eric Kendricks is great, Barr is great.
There is no pass rush. I mean, again, they're really low in hurries. They're pretty low in sacks, but they're number 3 in DVOA against the pass. So the thing is, they're depending.
Go with DVOA too.
Yeah, they're depending on.
Go ahead. You're on the right track here.
They're depending on the secondary here. I mean, that's the whole thing about their defense against the pass. Is they're just knocking it down. They're just coverage. They're just coverage.
I think they're just a little better at home too. I mean, some teams just don't play well on the road. I think Minnesota is definitely better at home. I think there could be something to what you're saying though, Aaron, because Matthew Stafford has played well overall this year. He looks better than he has in years past.
He's great.
And I think he's
great here.
Yeah, I think he's doing real well. And if the Vikings don't muster a pass rush, there's enough guys out there that could get open. You're asking a lot out of the secondary.
Well, you got Harrison Smith as a run-stopping safety. You have Rhodes, who's banged up, and I don't know that he'll play. You got Zendejo, who's already hurt and didn't play against Chicago. And then you got the rookie corner, Trey Wayans, who has really been a liability. When teams have been successful against Minnesota, they're beating him like a rug.
Yeah, they're picking up Williams, Yep.
Detroit's got Ebron has really stepped up his game lately. He had another decent game. We didn't really talk about studs at tight end, but Eric Ebron's been one of Stafford's main targets here. Marvin Jones, Golden Tate, Theo Riddick's back out of the backfield. Minnesota can stop the run, but Detroit isn't going to run a lot. I think they'll run in short yardage if they have to, but I really think that they're going to kind of take a page out of the Packers book. They're going to throw 50, 60 times, I think, against Minnesota.
Well, who do you like then? Do you like Golden Tate here? Do you like just Marvin Jones? And to me, Marvin Jones would be the guy. If I was going to start a guy, I'd probably start Marvin Jones. I'm not really sure I want to start Golden Tate.
I would start Tate.
But if you're Minnesota, you're putting your best defensive back on Marvin Jones because he's had the best success this year for Detroit. So Golden Tate could be the X factor in that game, and he is not a bad receiver.
Yeah,
no, he's a good receiver.
Thinking.
But with Bolden too, I mean, Bolden has been getting some targets. He's been getting around 11 fantasy points a game in PPR leagues. Is he worth starting this week?
I think he's a third option. I don't think that I would start Bolden over a solid, WR1 or 2. I would, if you have Marvin Jones or Golden Tate, I wouldn't be afraid to start him at flex or as your second or third receiver, depending on what your format is. Bolden if you got bye weeks and you're in trouble, he's a crapshoot. He might get 15, he might get 5.
Right.
That's just the way I see it.
I'm just not sure Minnesota's going to be real bad at home.
I don't think it matters where they're playing because Stafford is a dome quarterback. They're a dome team.
Yeah. See, this is the thing.
He didn't play well against Houston, though, last week. I don't think he had a particularly good game last week.
That's true. But
and Houston is not as good as Minnesota.
Houston's secondary is better than Minnesota's, I think.
I don't know.
Better than Minnesota's? Better than Minnesota's?
Right now, with the
way you're saying without Rhodes and without two guys, I think, right?
Right.
Yeah, I'm not saying if they're at full strength they're better. I'm saying right now I think Houston's secondary is better than Minnesota's going into this game. If they have no Zendejo and they have no Rhodes, I don't think Minnesota can outscore Detroit this week. I really don't.
That's a possibility. I mean, if Minnesota's definitely banged up on the defensive side, they probably will struggle. I guess it just depends on how bad their secondary is banged up by the time the Thursday injury report comes out.
I agree.
Well, Oz, why don't you go into waiver wires and streaming defenses, and then we got to wrap it up.
Yeah, I just got a couple of picks for you off the waiver wire, but I do want to talk some defense here. Let's talk about quarterback, where even in some sane leagues, there is at least one decent quarterback available, Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco is available in 77% of Yahoo leagues, and he's going up against what I consider to be a pretty weak Pittsburgh secondary out there. Flacco could get some points here, and Baltimore is coming up. So I'm looking for him. Now, we already talked about Chanderick West. I agree with Aaron on this. I think he's going to be the most popular ad in fantasy. I also think he's going to be like the best ad in fantasy this week. He might be the second high point man on Kansas City after Kelsey, if not number one. I do think Kansas City defense, though, could end up being one of the highest point scorers for the Chiefs this weekend. So you might want to consider them. Wide receiver. Couldn't find much of interest. However, I did find out that Michael Thomas is still not owned in, 22% of flea flicker leagues? Okay, so like 1 league out of 5 doesn't have this guy on a team. He's led the Saints folks in targets for like at least 3 games, maybe even 4. I know for sure 3. I mean, come on. Any league that doesn't own this guy should by now. On defense, I want to talk about defense. Some interesting stuff this week. How about Minnesota against Detroit? Well, we just talked about how many points Detroit's going to score. Now, the sportsbook disagrees. The over-under on this is pretty low. I think it's around 51 or so. But I don't know. I don't like Minnesota this week. Here's a weird one for you. The Giants are actually 2.5-point favorites against the Eagles. Okay, the Giants are favored in this game. They're playing at home. And the over-under on that is pretty low, but I don't trust that either. I have no idea about these lines. I have no reason why those look like that, unless a lot of folks from New York are betting the game. I really don't get it. Let's see. I kind of like the Ravens defense this week again against Pittsburgh. They had a pretty monstrous fantasy performance 2 weeks ago. And I think New England really kind of toasted Landry Jones of Pittsburgh. I mean, this guy, nobody telegraphs a pass in the NFL right now like Landry Jones. I think Baltimore is going to eat this boy's lunch. So I'm looking at Baltimore defense for sure, and that's still out there in a lot of streaming leagues. And I don't know, Matt, what do you think? I'm kind of liking the Rams defense at home against Carolina. What do you think? Is that too much of a gamble?
Well, I'm not really sure. Carolina hasn't played really well, particularly well on the road.
And they're certain to be distracted this week after these ridiculous comments about the refereeing and stuff. It doesn't matter which way the refs call this thing; it's going to be a constant distraction. I'm thinking that.
Well, I think it's
Carolina.
I think it's very possible that your pass rush rattles Cam Newton again. I do think that the referees will probably be on a little bit higher alert due to the due to the story with. And I thought he was taking some shots that weren't getting called, but so I understand it's to a point. But I would say the Rams defense is good for probably a couple of sacks, maybe multiple sacks. But I'm not sure if they're going to completely hold Carolina down. I'm a little up in the air on that. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
I'll tell you from my perspective, the two defenses that I would go for this week. One would, if they're still out there in any leagues, is Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Nah. Yeah.
Yep. Just follow the Browns. No doubt.
Another one. This matchup intrigues me a lot, and maybe I'm wrong here, but the Packers and the Colts. If Clay Matthews is back, that pass rush against that terrible offensive line for Indianapolis, and I think Andrew Luck could have a long day. And at Lambeau, coming off a 1-point loss, I think the Packers are going to be fired up. This is a must-win.
Wow. See, I think this is homerism.
If they fall to 4-4,
no way.
People around here will be calling for McCarthy's job. And
well, they should be already, but that's a different story. But, yeah, I would agree it's a must-win. I actually encouraged my wife to pick up the Packers defense. It was one of the ones that were available. I think you're right. This is a favorable matchup for the Packers.
They don't get a rush
overall.
This week, all year.
Well, yeah, I mean, and when they're at home in these situations, they usually find a way to get a turnover too. So, yeah.
Another defense I would consider actually is Detroit's defense. Minnesota's offensive line is not performing well. They're banged up. Chicago was in the backfield all night last night, and Detroit. I know they're minus Slay and Levy still, but I think that Hyder, their defensive end there, the pass rush specialist, he could give their offensive line some fits. I think Detroit would be a decent play this week as well.
Yeah, that's a good play. I was considering that because you got to figure that if Detroit goes into that second half with a lead, Bradford is going to start throwing the ball, and I think we're not too many quarters away from Bradford going full Bradford again. So I
never go full Bradford.
Exactly, and you never go full Bradford. So I would not be surprised to see a lot of turnovers out of Minnesota in the second half, again, if Detroit can get out to that lead. But since we all seem to believe that Detroit's going to put up a lot of points on the offense, I guess we should assume that Bradford's going to throw a lot. So Detroit might be a good play.
I think Pittsburgh's defense will actually be a good play since you did bring up
against Baltimore.
Ravens.
Wow, really?
I do.
Wow. Okay, what's the thinking?
My thinking is, well, Joey Flacco is kind of banged up, so I don't think he's going to be performing like the Joey Flacco that we're expecting to. Do I expect him? I do expect the Ravens to win just because of who. But that's if Big Ben doesn't come back, because there is speculation he might be back this week.
Oh, you've got to be kidding. Really?
No, there's speculation.
I've heard that, but I've also heard 4 weeks. I don't know what to think.
I've heard. I don't know. I've heard the same thing. I heard 4. I heard 6 weeks. Now I'm getting updates that he's been practicing this week, and they're thinking about playing him.
Holy hell. Wow.
Yeah. So
crazy.
I think if he comes back, I think that gives the defense a boost. Like, we need to win because our leader is back.
Well, it's going to prevent us from going 3 and out on every drive. See, that's my objection to starting Pittsburgh defense. If Landry Jones is starting, that defense is going to be on the field a lot.
Exactly. And that's why I said if Big Ben's there.
Yeah. But Roethlisberger.
All right, so if Big Ben's there, start him. If Big Ben is not there, don't get Pittsburgh. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
I think that's fair.
I would agree with that. It seems like when you have no confidence in the offense being able to move the ball, time of possession has you out on the field a lot more. Your performance is bound to go down. Guys get more fatigued. The offense, you got 300-pound linemen leaning on you every play. The defensive line gets no pass rush. I think that's a good call, and I think that's a lot of problem with a lot of the teams right now that are struggling on offense. Their defenses don't look as good as they would if they were being successful on offense. And I think that, case in point, the Bears last night. Cutler could extend the drives, get some chains moving. The defense was rested. They were well rested to take on the offense. I think it really helps. The best defense is keeping the offense off the field.
Yep. Well, we got to wrap up. So, anybody got any final thoughts for basically anything else that we've talked about today?
I got a question quick before we wrap up. Drew Brees against Tampa or Matt Ryan? I'm sorry, Drew Brees against whoever the hell they're playing, and Matt Ryan against Tampa.
And then Matt Ryan against Tampa.
Who would you start?
I like probably Drew Brees on that one.
Brees.
The only reason I'm saying Matt Ryan just because they're going to try to come back because Tampa Bay beat them week 1.
Yeah, they did.
So this is revenge.
Yeah,
that's the reason why I pick Ryan.
Yeah,
Tampa Bay beat them at Atlanta week 1. So at Tampa Bay, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a tough call. I feel like Drew Brees is going to have a little bit more time and stuff, but that isn't to say that Matt Ryan isn't going to go off either. But I'd probably lean Brees.
I just really think, and their defense has been stepping up lately. That defense wasn't there week 1 or week 2, so that's the only reason I think Matt Ryan's going to be Julio Jones, 150 yards. I'm just making bold predictions here.
I disagree. Julio's banged up. I don't think he's right.
Yeah,
when he was banged up the last time, he had 300 yards.
Yeah, Julio's going to have a big game within the next week or two because I think the numbers are going to balance out. I do think he's one of the best receivers in ball, and he had a bad week last week. So, but I don't know if it's this week. I was thinking about going with him in daily fantasy this weekend, but I don't know.
I bet he gets 100 yards, but I'm not sure he gets the end zone.
Yeah. See, that's what it feels like to me too. I think the monster game is maybe the week after this weekend.
Right.
And if you watch the Packers-Atlanta game, you see they were using him more as a decoy in the red zone.
Yeah.
And that's why Sanu was open and Gabriel was open.
Yeah.
Freeman was open. The Packers are giving a lot of attention to Julio Jones. They had a safety over the top on the play that they scored to take the lead. And they were covering Sanu with a linebacker, which I still don't understand. But
Sanu owners should be thanking him. Yeah.
And then I'll say another one is if Alex Smith doesn't play, get Nick Foles. They're playing Jacksonville. So I think
is that who
you like Nick Foles, huh?
In Kansas City, it's Nick Foles.
Nick Foles is their backup,
and
he actually
awesome.
And what's so funny is when he came in last week, he scored 2 touchdowns and 160 yards and only in a quarter.
He was actually I think it was something ridiculous, 22 of 26 for 186 yards, now a quarter and a half.
Yeah.
Well, he really played well.
So it's against Jacksonville, and they're at home.
So great to talk to you guys. Be sure to check out LaDonna's blog. Where can people follow you on Twitter?
You can follow me at Mimi Fandemonium. It's all one word. And also you can find me on Facebook, LaDonna Williams, and I'm a writer for Rivalry Sports at sportsblog.com.
All right. Well, for Aaron Zepnick, LaDonna Williams, Oz Davis, I'm Matt Andruscavage. You've been listening to The Truth About Fantasy Football on the Grueling Truth Radio Network, where the legends speak.